Now I'm going to share my screen. Now let's go find that. Go to Canvas. And we want to look on the instructor screen. Like I told you, I've changed the home screen to our first 8 weeks. Go to the instructor screen and scroll down and find that Zoom link. And let's right click on it and either copy that link address, or if you're using Internet Explorer, you might have a different prompt there. You guys in the back with us? Copy the link address to the Zoom session. Have you found it? Are you on Canvas?
You can also just click on it.
I don't want you to, though. I want to create a shortcut for it. So let's do what I say.
Sorry.
Okay, so have you guys found it? Are you on Canvas in the back? No? Yes? You? Yes? What about you? I'm looking at him. Have you found it? Are you okay? You're way back there in the back. I want to make sure you found the Zoom URL. I know. I want you to create a shortcut for it. Have you got a shortcut created for it on your desktop? If you've already done that, I'm sorry for bothering you. But let's do it like I say. Now, let's copy this link address, and let's go to our desktop. And I want to create a shortcut for that, because you're not going to want to go to that Canvas screen every day when we start up a Zoom session. So let's do that. I'm going to delete this one I already have. And if the world were all good, we should be able to right-click and just say Paste Shortcut. But since we have security in the network that's not allowing us to do that, we have to go to a little bit more trouble. So let's choose New, Shortcut, and let's paste that Zoom URL. Now when you click Next, you should be able to give that a name. I want you to give it a good name, because it isn't just Zoom. This is going to be our Zoom class session. So let's call it something like that, like Zoom Session. All right, and finish. And now you should have a shortcut on your desktop for our Zoom session. Now that's going to be just on this computer. I don't know if your desktop follows you around. It just depends on how they have the network set up. They change it every semester, so it might follow you around. But I want you to have a shortcut. Hang on just a minute, and then you can raise your hand and let me know what you've got to say. Sure. Now, when we create this shortcut, our Zoom session is not going to change. That's why I want you to create a shortcut for it. Have Zoom set up to use the same session ID every time. So if you move computers, or if your shortcut gets lost, or if you're at home, you can always go back to that instructor page and get that URL. So we'll be a lot better off if we just have a real quick shortcut to it. Now, hang on. Check and make sure everybody got signed in back here. Do you have anybody else that needs to get signed in? Since I wasn't able to get the secret chart all up to date, I'll be going completely off the sign-in sheet. So make sure you got signed in if you're here. Now, comments about that. Did you have something you wanted to suggest about doing our shortcut here?
Well, you could put the shortcut in your documents folder as well as in the desktop. So then, when you log into your computer for the first time, you can copy it to your desktop from documents, because documents stay with you. You
could do that, or you could just go back to Canvas and get it again. Yes, sir.
You have to change it in your settings. You have to change the default browser to Chrome.
Will it let you? Did it let you?
It did me.
Okay, good. I'm real lazy. I always just open Chrome, and when it says, would you like to make Chrome the default browser, I say yes. So you can find it wherever. Okay, so you should be able to join that Zoom session. Yay! Let's see if we can get it. I see 20 people in there. It seems there's a few people maybe having trouble. Let's go ahead and make sure that you can get in there. So you should have 1, 2, 3 gone. So we should have about 20. Maybe you're all there. All right, perfect. Okay, our first thing that we need to get taken care of from last week. That's super important. I was looking through your introductions, and I hated so bad to miss those. So what happened, normally I don't tell people this much about my health problems. You guys get extra special lucky since I included everybody in all the studios making me sick and everything. But they took out my gallbladder kind of in an emergency thing, and they think that infection and all that terrible stuff that was in there with it, making it not work, was making me hypersensitive. So hopefully it won't be an issue, and we'll see, and we'll be able to have food and all those wonderful things. So I got to introduce myself to you last Monday, but I saw a lot of your introductions too. So we're in pretty good shape. You were stuck with the sub on Wednesday. My brain is a little bit shook too. I'm sure you can understand. So if I say something dumb, just go with me and say, no, that wasn't right. So what I've got here is something's going to be a little bit of a test for you. Not a bad test, but can you remember anything about your classmates that you got introduced to a whole week and a half ago? It's been a long time. Now, if you've never played Kahoot, you just go to kahoot.it in a web browser and put in this game pin. If you have played Kahoot, do that same thing. Go to kahoot.it and put in that game pin. I made it all HQ-y, and you know, I like playing HQ, but I never win.
What's that?
It's a game show that's online. You bring it up on your phone like 2 or 3 times a day, and you can win money if you win, like 29 cents or $5,000 or all sorts of different ones. Oh, everybody's pretty quick. We got 11 in here. Look around, get the person beside you some help if they're having trouble getting into our Kahoot, because we got so many different things to do. We don't want to take forever. Oh, look at you guys being all so good. All those nice names. I have that guy. All right, looks like we're ready. I'm going to start it. Okay, we'll see if you're ready. This first question is the easy one. Now, you should have your Zoom session where you can see things. Arrange it the way you want. Too late? Oh, okay, it's too late now. You'll just have to watch. It won't let her join now. No, it's too late. Okay, almost everybody got it. That's pretty good. It's been a week and a half. That's not too bad. Most everybody's on it. All right, Zach was on it the fastest now. Okay, who likes Elder Scrolls in an old school typewriter? Can you remember? Oh, pretty good memory. A lot of people got it right. That's pretty impressive. Don't listen to anybody. They'll throw you off. Don't you know they'll always say the wrong answer? Okay, Zach is still waiting. I remember to finish the syllabus quiz. Are you going to tell the truth or get it right? Some people lied. Remember, that was due last night, and so it was due. Okay, so let's keep thinking about things, learning. Who is a meme lord and music jammer? That side of the room. Oh, wow. That was really good. You guys were on it. That was something. Do you think there was another one? Was there another meme lord and music jammer and I missed it? It's possible. It's always possible. Limited answers. This is a real HQ question. Which car logo features exactly 2 letters? Oh, really good. Tries to throw you. That's a good one. Oh, Zach's losing his lead here. Who enjoys learning about cybersecurity and binge watching Stargate Atlantis? Oh, really good memories, you guys. memory or guessing or whatever. That's all right. Composes orchestra for fun.
None of these.
Oh, that was interesting. I thought if I threw Michelle's name in there, that would confuse everybody, but you were immune. Good job.
Yeah.
Okay, John's still winning. Which one of these symbols appears on the dice in Milton Bradley's Jumanji board game? Again, a real HQ question.
What the heck is that?
I don't know, it's a real HQ question. I didn't see that question though. Oh, that was, you know, interesting. I probably would have gone Tiger too. It is Jumanji. It's probably when the movie came out. Who works at Ark of the Ozarks and serves in the National Guard? He said it, he's right. Good job. You guys did pretty good. That's usually a lot better if I can do it a little sooner. So sorry we had such a delay there. Not normally planning on it. Okay, so we've got our Kahoot done. I'm going to close it. Get some good scores there.
Never realized the medal spelled out the
I think that's new. I think it's cute. So looking at your Zoom session, before we move on, look at your Zoom toolbar and notice some of the things you can do, you know, what you can. One that's important is annotate. You can draw or click or spotlight on things on the screen. So if there's something that you feel like you should point out to other people or ask a question about, you can. Yes, sir?
I don't have that.
Your toolbar, what is it? Where is it, you guys? View options. Because yours is going to look different than mine, and I never know. You finding it?
Oh, okay, got
Did you
it.
find it? Awesome. Look around, find some more. Now, and we can actually give him remote control of my computer. So I could approve that, but I think what I'll do is instead, I'll decline, and I'll say, hey, why don't you share your screen instead? So I'm going to click on New Share, and actually, I'll just say, one of you, click on New Share and see if you can share your screen. Will it let you? Or, oh, I have to stop share. There it is. So I stopped my share. Now it should let you.
Never more.
They don't have a lot on their screen, do they? But so that way, if we have a programming problem, an issue or something, we can have your screen take over and everybody can look at it. So we can kind of try to figure out what your problem is or whatever it is that you want to do there. So we can do that kind of great stuff. Now, because this is more of a participant, I can show you a little bit more about what it looks like on your screen. In your view options, you could, again, like he was doing, request remote control. If you wanted to just grab my mouse and real quickly show me where something is, you just can't stand that I'm so freaking blind anymore. That's fine, you could do that. You could annotate by drawing like we are doing, or we could exit full screen. I'm going to click on that just to see. And there, now it's just part of the screen. So he's still controlling the broadcast. It's just not full screen. Okay. And then I should be able to make him stop, and I can share mine again. Now, when I click on share, and yours might look a little different, but you have all of the options for several different windows that you might have open. I usually share my main screen so that when I open new windows, they show up on the share. Otherwise, you'll just be sharing one thing. Like that last share was the whiteboard, right? So we could share that and do some working together. So even if you think of a tool that I'm not thinking of using, you know, let me know, because that's going to be the best way for us to get the maximum use out of it. We can do polls. We can also do the chat. Someone's in the chat, has it open. It's really good that you can use this because you can drop files in here if you want to, send files back and forth to each other. So if the person beside you is having a really hard time keeping up with the code or something, and you want to send them the CS file that you have, you could do that.
Isn't that key?
Not necessarily. If you're working together on a joint project and you're working together.
Or we're working something in class where we're working on it together. So you should be aware of what cheating is, and there's that very fine line. Cheating is saying, I did it when you didn't. That's the basic definition, right? Okay, so make sure your chat is always professional. Whenever we're working with a Zoom session, don't forget that it's being recorded, because I post them so that you guys can see them later in case somebody was absent or something like that. Whenever the chat, or whenever my session gets done, the chat gets recorded also. So we want to make sure that we're always being professional when we're working with tools like this, where we have, you know, other people involved that are watching our actions that are being recorded, right? Okay, so great. We've got Zoom is a great tool for us. You see how easy it is to use. If you're having a problem with something in your code, I can help you with it. But first of all, turn to your work group that we've created, your little team. Can't think of the word in Canvas. Some days brain goes blank. How did you guys do with that last week? We went in and we looked at our study groups. That's the word I'm looking for because my mind went blank. And you guys saw that we have a few people, 6 people basically in each study group. Those are the people for you to reach out to. So last week, you guys know you were really super helpful. When I left our class after the second class, I didn't get stuck right in the hospital. I got allowed to go home and get my stuff together, but it was pretty intense. And so when I started getting emails from people with questions that were important to them, but not something that I could deal with at the time, right? Because the doctor said, you are not working until Tuesday. I couldn't deal with those emails, right? I couldn't respond to those little questions. If those people would have sent those emails instead to their study group, maybe they could have gotten a little help. If you're a part of a study group and you get an email like that, be a help. Send something back. Let them know. That's the best way for you guys to build a good network amongst your peers. And these are the people who might be able to get you a job in a few years when they have a great job and you would like to get one. So maybe it will help out really, really much, is that the right word, that you had helped them back in C#1. So you always want to be part of your study group, a good part and a good contributor. So those kinds of questions, first to your study group, because they're there are more of them, and they are designed to respond to you quicker. Secondly, to me, that's fine, or to the tutoring center. And tutoring center has lots of tutors that are qualified to tutor in C#1. It's one of our big languages, right? So there should be quite a few people over there that can help you with some problems. Now, some of the problems you guys had were totally understandable. What in the world should we do? We had trouble with our hypergrade codes, right? Everybody got that worked out. The bookstore got those to you. Everybody got in their hypergrade codes. You were able to set up your hypergrade account. Give me a thumbs up. I'm going to keep asking because I'm not getting a good response from you, all of you programmers who like to just stare at your screen. All right, great. We got that taken care of. I think we're in good shape with stuff then. Now, you had a chance to look at your book. In the beginning, your book's not really helpful very much, is it? It's not like oh, here, let me hold your hand and nicely walk you through the cover. It's not. So we need a little bit more help besides just the book. So with our first chapter, that's why we did the Hello World video real quick, just so you could see how we could compile and run a C# program in command prompt, which is not what we would normally do. Normally with C#, we're going to use Visual Studio. It's going to help us with all of that stuff, make things a lot easier even than it was at the command prompt. But that's how we want to get started. When you look at that first chapter, you probably noticed they get really in depth into some topics And then other things they don't really give you a lot of information about. So for that chapter, think of that chapter as background knowledge, something you're going to want to come back to and look at again and see if it makes more sense when they're talking about .Net and all of the different platforms that it can run on. So our book will be something that we'll have to supplement a little bit. We can do that. Let's take a look in Canvas. I'm going to try to find our class here. I have the gradebook open, so I'm trying to move it before I put this on the screen. I do that all the time. There we go. So our modules. When we go to Canvas, you can click this collapse icon to collapse these modules down that you're done with so that they're out of your way. Now, if you're not seeing all of the week 2 things, it could be because we need to complete some of those items in Canvas. Let me set my view as a student so I can have my screen look like yours. So if you remember that first day, it was kind of busy, we were talking about in Canvas, we have to complete all of the items in each module to be able to move on. So in my setup course module, as I look at it, I see that, go ahead and get rid of that. When I look at this module, I see this circle here that shows that I haven't completed this item. It's not a check mark. So I haven't completed that setup module. So if I click on that item, I can mark it as done. So that was the intro video, which you guys should have watched through the syllabus quiz. So you might have to go back and mark it as done because you've already done it. And I can go back to my modules. And now my setup course module is all done. Everything has turned to green check marks that I was required to complete, so I can collapse that module down. Now, my week 1 is not that way. I haven't completed any of the items that I needed to complete in week 1 here in Canvas, so I've got to fix that up. Now, you as a student have probably done a lot of these things already. Notice these red items here are assignments that I haven't turned in yet, and that's why they've turned red, because now they're late. So it's trying to give you kind of an overview piece of information here in Canvas. Now that first task, acquire the textbook, if you remember I mentioned that, how important it was going to be for us. So I'm going to mark that as done. I could just keep clicking next through that whole module to make sure I'd gotten everything, or I can go back and look at the module view and see, or refresh. Now, I should be able to bypass these assignments, but Canvas is, has been updated, so we'll make sure. Now, I need to look at the summary and mark it as done. And then I should be able to go into week 2. Now, because of this Canvas blocking, I set up this week 2 preliminary module just to say, hey, if you're not seeing week 2, make sure you mark all these things done in Canvas. We just did that, so I'm going to click next, and we should finally be to our week 2 overview. Now, as you start out, remember on a Monday morning when a new week becomes available, the idea is that you would start at the beginning of the module, click next through all of the items, marking is done, or viewing is necessary. So for week 2, if we take a look at week 2, we have a short week 2 just this one day. It was chapter 2. So I can mark that as done. I know what I need to read. And I click next. Oh, here's our first assignment for the week that we can handle pretty easily. This is locate the instructor's office. So I have our assignment sheet here, We're going to go upstairs. We'll just all go up there together and see where my office is because it's kind of hard to find. And everybody can sign this one, and then we'll have this assignment done. So I'll click next. That one will be easy. Now this one is a little different. This assignment is talking about repl. Well, I mentioned that we might need a little help beyond our book, a little bit more practice, because some of the chapters just kind of give us some weird random lines of code. It's like, see, we could do this. So we want to get a little bit more solid practice. So repl is a facility that works online. It's cloud-based, and it will let you guys do some coding practice, and it will walk you through some different lessons, and it'll check it all for you to make sure everything looks good. So this very first repl is kind of like a course in repl. So let's see if we can get started with it. Click on the link repl IT to create an account, or go down to the course name, C# begins, and click on that course invite. Either way, when you get to repl.it, you're going to need to sign up. Fill in your information and then click sign up. Now for this very first time when you create your account, it kind of loses track of that course invitation. So we have to go back and click on it again. And then it seems to enroll you in the course. And then it seems like maybe the third time it actually works and lets you all the way in. It's free, it's not perfect, but it's kind of a nice help. Now it is free, I'm not paying for it. So we could all of a sudden run over some sort of limit and get some weird error messages. So let me know if that happens. You know how these sites like to make you pay. Now, if you click on that C# begins link enough times in Canvas, you should eventually get a repl screen that shows you this student information, and you should see our C# begins course showing up there. Does it work out? I need to pay. If I paid, it would be like integrated in Canvas. They say it looks good.
I just have this.
Okay, good. That's perfect. I have a bunch more. You just only need that one yellow one. I always have to look for a minute. It's like, oh, that is my screen. Is it working? Let me have it. So you guys should just have that gold one. The C# begins. Now, if everybody's got it, it looks like you do. Great. Let's click on it to start the course. Now, there's some things about repl that are really neat and some things that aren't as great as others. So we'll try to use all of the great things to our benefit and avoid all of the other things. Now, this is set up in a bunch of different assignments. Gosh, so many. They're all really short, really quick for this first section. And what they are little coding practice assignments for you. So let's start this first one. Why repl? I'm going to click on it. Now, when you look at repl in the assignment window, you'll see there's some different areas. I'm going to show you a lot of different things today. We have our code window up here. Here's our source code. It's got the Hello World program already loaded up. It should look pretty similar to the Hello World program that you created, right? Down here in this black area is where our console would be, our input and our output area for us as users. And over here on this side are the instructions for each assignment. So they're going to be a little bit different depending on what's going on. So let's see, this one says a little bit about repl. Oh, and this is a cool thing. You can use repl on any device. So if you're stuck somewhere and all you have is your phone, you can actually bring up REPL and complete some of these C# assignments and things like that using your phone, because it's all cloud-based, so it doesn't matter what device you're using. So that's one good reason we're using it. Sometimes we have students that are traveling or doing things, and they can still get to all of these assignments because they don't have to download and install Visual Studio and all that kind of stuff to get it to work. Okay, so this one says, try each REPL assignment in Visual Studio as well, if you want to. You could copy that code over to Visual Studio. And you make sure you're looking at your textbook when you're doing some of the REPL stuff. Some of the things will be like side by side. All right, so that's good. This assignment we're done with. It says just submit it. So I can do some things here. Before I just submit it, I could click run, and that would run this little program, my .sc file or CS file up here. And here's my output. It says hello world. Bless you. So I could run it again and make it say hello world. So I could just run it as much as I want. The drop down arrow will allow you to run it with the tests. So tests are things that are preset for each assignment to validate your output, kind of like Hypergrade validates. And this one said, if I clicked run tests, it says, oh, it passed all the tests. How could I make it not? Let's try it. I'm going to take the O out of hello world, make an accidental typo, and I'm going to run my tests again. Oh, now when I do it, it says, oh, there was an output mismatch. Your output didn't match what was expected. So you can click on this pink part to see what the problem was, or you can click on show details. Either way, it'll show you where you want to ride. So what it says is, I expected to see this, but instead I saw this. And the difference down here, it has that O highlighted in pink. So you can tell it kind of does it a little bit like Hypergrade, where it's trying to figure out where the difference is and highlight it for you so that you can see the problem and correct it. Okay? Questions? Can you see all that? It makes sense about how it works and how it's going to highlight this for you. Now, what if you've been working on this REPL assignment for ages and you still can't figure out where your problem is? You don't know what to do, but it's not matching, it's not passing the test. Well, you can click submit anyways, and it'll say it failed, it doesn't match. But you can go ahead and click submit anyways. And what'll happen then is it'll be sent to me. If I look for it, I can go out there and find it and see that you have a question. So let's have somebody try it. Frayden, will you try it? Will you submit this anyways, even though it doesn't match, so I can show everybody what it does? Now, he's going to submit that, but I'm not going to know it. If he doesn't send me an email, I'm not going to have any idea. So you have to send me an email and let me know that you've submitted something that you have questions on. So I'm going to go find it. You'll see it's not super easy for me to find it unless I know I'm looking for it. Did you do it? Oh, they've changed it. It always makes me into a liar here. Anyways, on my end, I'll be able to see that you submitted it with a question, and I'll be able to respond to that question and send it back to you. But they've updated their interface, so I'll have to look at how to do that. It's always fun and exciting to be in the computer field because things are never the same. So I'll find his assignment and fix it. Oh, it's up to you. It is fine leaving it like that. So the big thing is, don't ever feel like you have to have it perfect to submit it in REPL. That's not what the idea is here. These are not your perfect assignments. This is where you're going to submit it to me if you need some help. And that way I can just send it right back to you really quick, hopefully, and say, oh, you just are missing this really small thing. And you can get it fixed and get it done and understand what your problem is. So if we work with it together, and you guys submit things when you have questions, and I'm able to get back to you right away because you sent me an email and let me know and I had a chance to get into it, then you can get that feedback that you need right away to keep going with your programming so that you don't feel like you're getting stuck forever waiting. Now, the other thing is there's no sort of mechanism to prevent you from moving on. So if I got stuck with this first one, I could still go ahead and work on the next one and see if I can get it figured out. And a lot of times in these short REPL assignments, the next one might actually give you the answer to the previous one, so that if you wanted to, you could kind of back up and say, oh, I see now. Because REPL is all about for you to learn. It's not about, you know, me counting scores and saying, you're an enter, that's perfect, or anything like that. It's just for you to learn how to program so that you can get familiar and comfortable with your C# stuff. Now, some things about using REPL. When you were looking in Chapter 1 of our textbook, they mentioned that there were several different C# compilers. There is the C# compiler that's in Visual Studio. Then there is the C# compiler that's open source, the Mono compiler, Mono developed. And that's what REPL uses. So this gives you an opportunity to use with the Visual Studio compiler in Visual Studio and that Mono compiler in REPL. So you'll get a chance to see there's some teeny tiny minor differences that don't really amount to much. Okay, questions about REPL? Do you see how you're going to get started with it this week? This class with all of these assignments is due next Tuesday, so that's quite a bit. So as you work on them, remember, each one's really short, really sweet. If it's taking you a long time, submit it if you want to ask me what's wrong, or move on to the next one. When I take your score from it, I'm going to take your total overall score. So if you skip a few of these assignments in here, you're probably still going to get, you know, a 92 or something like that on that whole REPL class. So it's not going to be that big of a deal. For this week, this is going to replace your quiz. There won't be any sort of quiz or anything over Chapter 2, so it'll be your REPL instead. We like to do that, assignments and quizzes. Okay, so using this Mono compiler, it uses the same syntax, but it's kind of ugly. It's not pretty. Visual Studio, you're going to find out, is a lot prettier. So let's try it. Let's get into Visual Studio. Make sure I'm sharing my screen. Now on our system, if you start typing Visual Studio on the Start menu, you'll see Visual Studio Code, which they talk about again in Chapter 1. This is the bare bones Visual Studio that runs on several different platforms. We're going to use Visual Studio itself, Visual Studio 2017. And remember, that's the one that you could get from Microsoft Premiere, or whatever that thing's called, Imagine, I guess. Now, the first thing we are always hit with is the sign-in screen. It's totally up to you. You can sign in if you want. You don't have to if you don't want to. Remember, this has nothing to do with your licensing. Your licensing for Visual Studio is based on that product key from that Microsoft Imagine site that you have to make sure you get entered in your Visual Studio install for it to stay active. So I'm just going to click Not Now, maybe later. But it's totally up to you. If there's some cloud-based things or something that you want to use, you can sure log in to your Microsoft account there. Now, we want to set our development settings. I've not run Visual Studio yet on this machine since they reloaded it. So I have an opportunity here to reset it. And I think that I would like it to be set for Visual C#, because that's going to be my primary development environment. So I'll choose that. And then some of you may have already experimented. You can choose different color themes or schemes for Visual Studio for the editor environment. So whatever you like is fine. Now, I usually go with the blue because with projectors and things, it's always been the easiest for students to see the dark letters on that light background. Last semester, everybody said they liked seeing things better from the dark display settings, so that's fine. So you guys let me know if you want me to change it. Remember, if you're getting glare from the lights or something that we need to shut off, since this whole thing is new, you know, let me know so we can adjust and make it better. But I'll go ahead and pick dark and let me know if that's not working for you. You can't see it. Now these settings are just for your first use, where you'll choose them the first time you use Visual Studio on a machine. So you'll see that if you jump from machine to machine, it can kind of slow you down. Setting up everything. Now we have some additional tools installed on top of Visual Studio that aren't from Microsoft. These are the Intellij tools, and Intellij is a software developer, I guess, support system, if you want to call it that. They have some products that are really heavily used, like in Java development. We use one of their Python products in some of the Python classes. You can get all of these Intellij products for free from Intellij IDEA if you go to their website and register as a student. So if there's something that you like here, because ReSharper is doing things for Visual Studio and it's not happening for you at home, you might want to go get these products. Now, having said that, which do we want to choose? Do we want to activate them or not activate them? This is just shortcuts. So I think I want to go ahead and use the ReSharper ones. But I might regret it if I'm looking at some sort of instructions and things won't work right because I have this Visual Studio mod installed. So this agreement here has to do with that JetBrains, the Intellij stuff. I'll scroll down and accept it. Okay. Now, because OTC is an educational institution, we were able to get all of these Intellij products for free too, just like you can. So this is kind of the license summary of all the different products and everything. If they're causing us trouble, you know, if it's giving you some sort of licensing issue or problem like that, let me know and click OK. So now we should finally be to Visual Studio because we've gotten past all of those initial setup things that we had to get past. And we're looking at the start page. Notice the start page is a tab. A lot of Visual Studio stuff is displayed to you in a tab like that. And the start page is going to be kind of web-based content. So Visual Studio is going to try to connect to the internet to display this because it's going to give you all this news information that it's pulled. It's all up to date. So you could click on any of those things if that was a topic that was interesting to you that you wanted to find out. It also presents us an open and new project kind of template area, assuming that's going to be something that we want to do right away. And then over here, we'll have our recent projects listed after we've created some. And we have some tutorials for getting started up there again, too, that we could click on and watch if we wanted to. So we would like to create a new project. So we're going to use our File menu. And we're going to choose File, New, Project. Whenever we're working with Visual Studio, we want to keep everything as a project. So last time, you created just a file, right? Hello world.cs. And that was just the only thing we had. And we were able to compile that into a .exe file and run it. Well, with Visual Studio, we're going to wrap some stuff around that, and we're going to have this whole project that's going to contain our CS files, our code files, and other things. So having this whole project is what's going to give us the ability to have GUI forms and all sorts of different related files and stuff like that. So I never want to choose new file unless it's a special situation. I always want to choose new project. When you choose new project, the project template window is going to open. It's going to give you a lot of choices of different, like pre-built C# projects that you can start with. So they're starting points. You could pick one of them, and with a whole lot of work, you could make it into another type. but there really isn't any reason to, because we can just pick the correct template to start with for what we want to do. Let's look over here in this left pane. First of all, notice that Visual Studio, like they were talking about in our textbook, gives you a lot of different languages. It's not just C#. So I'm going to roll up C#, and let's see what else we could do. Other languages. We have Visual Basic, Visual C++, SQL Server, that's interesting. Visual F#, JavaScript, Python, TypeScript. So Visual Studio has support for developing a lot of different languages. It's not just C#. So when you get familiar with the Visual Studio development environment, you can use that knowledge to create code in lots of different languages. Now, they also have other project types, and we could look at online solutions. There's all sorts of fancy things, but we want to stick with C#. So you can look around, but I want to use Visual C#. Now, when I click on Visual C# as my language, notice the middle window fills up with many, many different template types. For us, for our first applications, we want to create console apps. That's what that Hello World app was, right? It uses just that black, ugly console screen to display that message. So we would use a console app. If you notice, there's two kinds. There's the .NET Core and the .NET Framework. Well, if we were running Visual Studio Core, .NET Core, we would choose the .NET Core application because it would give us the background, the system support, all of the behind-the-scenes libraries to run on any platform. For us, we'll always choose, in general, .NET Framework because we're running on Windows, so we have the support of the full .NET Framework. Now, we can click on that, but we don't want to double-click or go crazy and make it create our project because we have more things we need to figure out before we do that. So I can click on Console App, .NET Framework, and then I need to concern myself with all of this information down at the bottom. Where do I want this project saved? This project, again, is going to be created with several different components. It's going to have a whole folder worth of items and files. So it's not something that's easy to change after we've got started. We need to decide where it should be saved before it's created, not after. So Word document, one file, get to decide after. Visual Studio project, many things, have to decide beforehand. So what do we want to name this application? Where do we want to save it? What do we want to name the overall solution for this application? That could be the same thing as what we want to name this project. So I want to name mine Hello World. I'm going to click in the name field and put Hello World. And I'm going to use camel case in my project name. I'm not going to put any spaces. This is going to be a name that could be included in my code, so it shouldn't have spaces or special characters or anything like that in it. Now, location is super important. Where are we going to save this project? Right now, it's set on my machine to save to the C drive. Well, that's not a good place at all, is it? Because that's just going to be this computer here. And if my computer gets corrupted by somebody else, and the IT staff has to come over and reload it, everything on the C drive is going to be gone, right? So I don't really want to put my programs on the C drive. Where could you guys put them? Where do you think would be good? S drive, do what? Does the desktop follow you around?
No.
No, so you would want, that would be at the same as the C drive. What are you thinking?
The H drive.
The H drive, that would be a good place.
Possibly if you have one like a flash drive.
You could use a flash drive. And so if you want to make sure that you always have your flash drive with you, that's a good way to do it too. I like saving it to my H drive. You could also use that S drive. Did you use that in like CIS101 or something? Some classes use it more than others. You did? Some people are really attached to it, others aren't. I don't ever ask you to put anything on the S drive, so that's up to you. The S drive is a network share, and it gets wiped out between semesters. If you put it on your H drive, it'll stay there between semesters. So either one is fine. I'm going to put my code for our class on my H drive. So I'm going to click Browse. And I want to go, our H drive is mapped to our Documents library. So you can click on Documents. And then I have a CIS150 folder. And I will create a new folder for SP19. Now notice that because Visual Studio is going to create a whole folder, it's wanting you to select a folder here, not an individual file. So now that I've got my Spring 19 folder created, I can choose Select Folder, and that should update that location in that project creation. Now, because the H drive is a network share, you'll see when it comes to this location, it says //FSD. That means it's on a file system that's on the server. Now, this is an aside. We have a lot of asides when we first get started. If we save to the H drive, we're saving it on the network, right? Visual Studio forevermore is going to complain to you about that and say, this isn't a trusted location. This isn't on your computer. Are you sure that you want to open this project from this network share? That's okay, because we can just say yes. If you use a flash drive, you're not going to get all those warnings and errors, because that's going to be a trusted location on your local machine. So Visual Studio is a really high-end environment. It's got a lot of options for you, and so it can be a little complicated. Yes, sir?
What exactly is the solution?
We'll be looking at that as we go. Good question. It's kind of the whole thing. Now, because we do want to have this folder created for us, make sure that checkbox Create Directory for Solution is checked, which it should be. And then we're finally ready to click OK and create our project. Now, if you notice, it was a whole lot easier just to open Notepad and type in that little bit of code, wasn't it? But in the end, it'll be a lot easier to use Visual Studio. All right. So some things. First of all, up at the top, we see a lot of using statements. These statements specify namespaces, different libraries that we want to use in our program. When Visual Studio creates a new project, they automatically include lots of using statements in there. Kind of bloats up your program. We only need system, so let's get rid of those others for our first program. Right now, if you notice that word using is dim, it's not bright blue. That means we're not actually using that system namespace anywhere in our program, so Visual Studio is questioning us. Are you sure? Now, our namespace is kind of like equivalent to our project. So it's sort of a floating thing that's hard to define. In our book, it says it's a convenient way to organize types. So it really is just a high-level container, a root container that holds all of the pieces of our project together. Okay, so after our namespace, we have open and closing curly braces. Then within our namespace, we have our class. C# is class-based. We have to have a type. So we're always going to have a class with a class name. Notice how much brighter it is and prettier than looking at it just in repl, because now we have some color coding of some different keywords. So this name program here, we could change it if we wanted to. It's just a name. But the word class that's in blue, we couldn't change that because that's a specific keyword to C#. So we can see some things from our color coding. Now the class itself is really just another container, and we can see again that it has open and closing curly braces for its beginning and end. Within our class, we have methods or subprograms. So they're just pieces of code that we've chunked together that work together logically. And in any C# program, we have to have the subprogram or the method named main. That's where our program's going to start. So let's put in a line of code like we had before. We said, oh, we want to use the console class. And from the console class, we want to write a line to the screen. Well, right away, when you type the word console and put a dot, notice Intellisense, the Visual Studio Intellisense part of our editor, pops up with all sorts of suggestions, making things much easier than if you have to type it all out by hand like we had to in Notepad. So if I scroll down, I should be able to find that Writeline, find all sorts of things. These are all the different methods that are available to the console class. So it can be a lot, but we know we're looking for something about writing to the console. So I could just type a oops, I got some stuff. Let me Control Z that. I'll just type a W, and the Intellisense editor will limit that list to the items that start with a W. And I see it there. Oh, it's Writeline. Now, I don't want to have to type forever. You know that carpal tunnel, it hurts all your hands from typing too much. So I could actually have Intellisense do some typing for me. I could arrow key down to Writeline. And at this point, if I want to put this in my code, I could press Enter. I could press Tab. Lots of different ways. So try it. When I pressed Enter, the Intellisense editor automatically popped in that Writeline keyword with the opening and closing parentheses that are required after it, and the closing semicolon. So it does help you a lot. So as you work with a REPL, sometimes you might want to write the program in Visual Studio and then copy it to REPL. In REPL, we don't have a namespace, so we would have to get rid of the namespace in its curly braces and just leave our class. All right, so let's run it. What do we want this to say? I need a message. Yes, sir?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
That sounds good. I'll do it like this. How's that? Now, if I run this, first of all, how would I run it? I'd click Start up here in the toolbar. It's got my play button, my play icon, so I could run it that way. Let's try it. Oh, there's my console. It just popped up and then just disappeared. Didn't show me anything. That console just doesn't stay for me to see my message. So let's try running by pressing F5. Ah, that did the same thing. How about Alt F5? Oh, that's not what I want. Control F5. Sometimes you have to try those different keystrokes to see what happens. We all do, right? Now, if I use Control F5, my program will run and the console screen will stay open so that I can see the output.
It's not working.
What's it doing?
Control F5 and doesn't do anything.
Oh, close this one. Oh, that's me.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, there we go. Weird. Hey.
Everybody else is working? Okay, so we see our output, and then we've got this nice message, press any key to continue. So that works. We can get it to stop and let us see what happened. Why does the console go away? Well, who writes console programs anymore, right? It's not something that we would use in a general daily basis unless we're in school and we're learning how to use them. We don't use them too much after school. So that looks good. Let's press a key to continue. What if I wanted to run my program at the command like we did before, but I want that console window to stay open? Yeah, I can do a console.read key. They got it. Let's put it in there. Now, all of these different read methods that are available to the console give us the ability to read input from the user when they type it in. But they also make the console just stop and wait for that input. So we can take advantage of that by using this read key statement. And now if I run my program, I should see my output, testing 1, 2, 3. And it should just sit there waiting for me because it's waiting for me to type something in. So I could have a nice message there, press any key to continue if I wanted to.
Read key and read line.
Read key and read line. What?
Read line also gets it open.
Yeah, read line will keep it open. It's just how much you're going to read. So read key is just going to read in one keystroke. Read line is going to read in the whole line of whatever they typed. So if they typed more than one letter. So differences in how much input there will be. Perfect. Is it working for everybody? You see it? Trying stuff? Great. My phone's going nuts. So let's look at chapter 2. I had it open somewhere. Chapter 2 is really short compared to chapter 1. Chapter 1, I just wanted to give you the whole history, background, and everything about .NET, try to run you off. Why is that? I don't know why. They do a lot in programming to try to run people off. Maybe that keeps salaries high. I don't know.
I was wondering why we needed to know all of the updates from the very.
I know, I was reading through it going,
Some of this is obsolete.
It's crazy. And it's a problem with Microsoft, you know, and as a teacher, you see it every time that they never start just at the beginning with a new product. They're always like, well, now there's all these changes from this, and they always assume you've been using this product since the beginning of time. And it's like, wait, how do I start? They never tell you how to start. So that's good because that means teachers have to be around once in a while, or maybe you would just not need us at all. We'll see. Okay, so the IDE, that's what we're looking at in Visual Studio. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment, and it means that it's got all these tools that you need to create C# programs built into one platform for you to use, one tool set. So we have all of the different .NET languages. We saw those in Visual Studio. We could use any of those languages if we wanted to, but we're going to use C#. And we saw that there was a lot of Visual Studio additions and tried to get our right version of Visual Studio installed. So in your textbook, again, they might push you towards that free one, that community edition, and we don't really want that because it might not give us all of the capabilities that we need. So they show us some other screens that we haven't seen yet. We'll look at those, don't worry. But then they get into this new project window that we just went through. So they have some good information in your textbook showing you how to get started there. I wanted to try this app, my Rockin' app. Let's try it. So I've got my Visual Studio environment all set here. And right now is just writing out things to the console. But let's try some other capabilities. First, let's set up our console title. So my green text is a comment because we started with the // and so you can see in Visual Studio it always color codes your comments as green. Now how I want to do that, I'm going to use console.title and I want to set our title equal to, they used my Rocking app. You can change it to whatever you like. That's fine. Now let's try setting up console colors. We can choose console.foreground color equals. Now I would like it to be yellow, but I can't just type yellow. But if you notice, Visual Studio in the IDE is already making all sorts of suggestions for me here. It's like, well, you want to use this console color item, so which color would you like? I'll try dark yellow. And I'll put my semicolon at the end. Now I want to try that. They've got some more lines of code that we can try. But let's see what happens just from adding those 2 lines. I'm going to run the program, and I'm going to leave the read key in there because I want it to pause that console for us. Now, I see that it still says testing 1, 2, 3, and it is in yellow, but I'm going to change my font so that you can see it more. Yeah, it's in yellow. It's kind of hard to see. Maybe I want to make it all matrixy, you think. We'll see. Now I'm going to go ahead and I can press enter or close that window either way to finish running my program. But if I don't, if I minimize this window and I forget and I try to make changes to my code, I can't. Changes are not allowed while your code is running. So I'll click OK, go find that console window and close it. So if you see that person beside you doing that, say, dude, it's running, it's running. Make it stop running. Okay, so we can do that. All right, so that'll let me fix my 4 color, and let's do our background color. I've seen so far that working with the console class, I just type the class name console, and when I put the dot, it shows me all of the properties and methods that are available from the console class, and I'm looking for my background color, and sure enough, there it is, background color. Now the background color is a property, and that means it's like a variable. I can just set it to a value, and notice the icon that it has because it's a property. So I want to set my background color equal to, oh, you know it, I want to go with dark green. So I want it to be like really ugly. Now let's try it. Kind of weird, only set that back color for that 1 line, huh? Yes, sir?
Oh, wait, never mind, I figured it out, sorry.
Okay. So we can't do as much as we would like, but it does set that background color. We kind of have to set the back color for the whole console before we would open it. But let's try some more things here. They'd like us to write out some messages. So the first one, I'm going to use console.writeline, and I'm going to output a whole bunch of stars. And then maybe a few more. The next line, they have, I should be counting these stars, right? They have 5 stars or asterisks before the space, and they say, welcome to my rocking app. And then they have 5 stars after. So I'll make my line of asterisks be the same length. And then I'll copy that line of code and paste it. Now, when I'm working with Visual Studio, it's kind of like Word, where your cursor position determines how much you're going to select when you click. So if I move my cursor all the way over here to the far left into this gray area until it turns to that white pointer, when I click, it's going to select that entire line of code. All right? So I can Control-C to copy it, Control-V to paste it. So again, just like Word, if I just wanted to select the Writeline word, I could double click on it and it would select just that little bit. Notice how the Intellisense editor is like selecting the ones below you to say, no, look, you have this command repeated. So if you have it typed wrong, you have these other areas too. So it's always trying to be helpful. And then they want us to change the color one more time. And we're going to put our back color equal to black. Let's see what that does. And I'll put a comment there. Wait for enter key or actually for us, since we're using read key, wait for any key to be pressed. Okay, so I'm going to try it. I don't think we necessarily needed to turn the console back to black. Things have kind of changed with different releases of Windows. That back color property used to change the whole console. It's kind of sad that it doesn't anymore, but we can deal with it. So we see that we can use this console class and take advantage of different properties and methods that the console class gives us just by copying it in. Let's look at some Visual Studio things before we get too far into our code. Visual Studio, being our IDE, our integrated development environment, has a lot of capabilities, and it has a lot of different windows that we're already looking at, right? So first of all, right now, I'm going to do a save, and I want to always use Save All. If you notice up here in your toolbar, you have a one disk icon that just does a save. That would save this program.cs file, but I would like to save this whole project, right? I don't want it to be corrupted when I go to open it again, so I need to save all pieces of it. So when I look at my picture up here, remember our project is a whole environment, and our program.cs file is just this one little part of it. So we want to always save the whole thing. Do you save it? Let's close it, open it again. So first I'm going to open Visual Studio. And of course it's going to be on my recent list, right? But that's not really going to help me make sure I know how to open it, is it? Because what if I want to put this on a flash drive or something and open it from home? So instead, I'm going to use the menus. And I'm going to ignore that JetBrains message and use File, Open, Project, Solution. Now, again, it's defaulting to my C drive. That's where Visual Studio has decided you should be saving your programs. I didn't save it there, so I'm going to go to my documents, my H drive. I put it in my 150 folder, and I created that SP19 folder for it. So there finally is my Hello World folder. That's still not the thing to open though. So I need to look at this project folder and go one more layer down until I find my solution. And my solution has the purple icon that matches the Visual Studio icon. And that's the file that we want to select to choose to open our project. So we see our code is in a .cs file, but our project itself is, let me get the blue, ASLN file, a solution. Now, like I promised you, it's griping at me because I saved that to my H drive. And it says, are you sure this is a trustworthy place? It was out on some network. I know it was, so I'll click OK. And I could uncheck that box so that it didn't quit bothering me. But with our network, it might pop right back. Okay, so now, if you got it open correctly, you should see your code pop up. It should be right back to where you were. Everybody okay? Everything open? It opened good? Got it, got it, got it. Didn't open right? Here it is. Now, I'm going to show everybody what's going on in the computers. Everybody else, okay, when Braydon's open, his project opened, but it didn't open a tab. Instead, it just looked like this. So he's not seeing his code. So it's like it's not there. Well, it is there. So this area, the Solution Explorer, shows us information about our entire project. our entire solution. So it says, so for your solution, it's a console app, that's why it has that console icon, and it has this program.cs file. That's our important thing. We know that that .cs file is where our code is. So if we double click on that in Solution Explorer, it'll open that program.cs file back in the code window.
So if you were to accidentally close the part that's showing your code, trying to click on something else, you can just go back with that and
Exactly. So the Solution Explorer always shows you all your stuff. What if you can't find Solution Explorer? What if it's gone? Let's close it. Now, if the Solution Explorer is gone, you need to use your View menu. So any Visual Studio windows or tools or things that you can't find that have disappeared are probably somewhere on your View menu. But it's a pretty big View menu. It's not just a little bitty one. So I'm looking for the Solution Explorer. Well, it's really important, so it's right at the top. Solution Explorer. And I'll click on that, and it comes right back. What if you don't like the layout? What if you would like the Solution Explorer to be on the other side? Grab its toolbar and drag it wherever you would like it. Now, when you're dragging, notice this gizmo here in the middle that lets you kind of do a quick click. So I want to move my Solution Explorer over to the far left. So I'm going to drop it on this icon that shows the far left. And now my Solution Explorer is moved over there. Try it. Now I'd also like to move that other thing that was under it, my properties, over to that side too. I don't know why, I just feel that way. So I'm going to grab my properties window, which will become much more important to us later. It's not very important to us right now. But I'm going to grab that window and drag it. And again, I can use that gizmo and drop it on that far left. But it sort of went beside my Solution Explorer instead of beneath it like it was before. So I want to rearrange that and say, no, actually I want it like down here in this area. So work with that gizmo. You'll see how it changes a little bit depending on where you are and how you can drag things and drop things and move them around, get them the way you want it. Now, what if I wanted my Solution Explorer to disappear, but yet still be there? Yes, sir?
Press on the arrow.
The arrow. This arrow?
Yes.
Let's see.
And click on hide.
I could do that. But I don't really want it to, let's try this other one. How about this push pin? So try that. That's the auto hide, so it's like a hide, but it gives us a little more capability because now when we use the auto hide, it's got a tab over here on the side. So if I want my Solution Explorer back, I can just click on that side tab, okay, because it's not pinned. What if I want it to stay? I don't want it to hide. I just pin it. And now it's pinned. Got it. See it? Move things around. Now, try stuff because this is an area where new developers can lose a lot of time. If they can't find a window, they can't remember where something is, it can really cause us trouble. So we can pin items to keep them from auto hiding. We can auto hide them if we want to, or we can hide them completely if we just don't want them on the screen for now. Now, this is one of the things that lets developers utilize multiple windows, right? Multiple monitors, which I'm sorry you guys don't have because we should. It would really be helpful. But you could drag your Solution Explorer off over to another window and keep your code here on this window or however you want it to arrange things. But let's say that you've done all these things and now you can't find anything. It's all screwed up. You can put it back. Look at your window menu, and under Window, you can choose Reset Window Layout. Are you sure? Yeah, I haven't done that much. And that'll reset everything back to the default layout. So if you've lost something and can't find it, you can try that reset to get it all back. Warm in here. Did it work?
Yeah.
It's working. Great.
That's a tool for you.
Yeah, it is. All sorts of cool stuff. Now, when we look at Visual Studio, we have so many different things we can do. On that view menu, notice also that we could open the code window, which we're looking at here. Using view, we could use a shortcut key. We can double click on things, all sorts of different things. Before we do that though, in our program here, our class is named program.cs, and up here, I say it's named helloworld.cs. Let's fix that. I can't just change things here like that in Visual Studio without getting some of the linkage messed up, right? Things are all tied to each other. I need to be careful and do things in a certain way. So the best way to rename things like that, our CS file, is over here using Ellucian Explorer. So if I click once on my program.cs to select it, and again to go into rename mode, I can go into rename mode just exactly the same way I can on Windows, and I could rename this. Let's say I'm going to make it Hello World. I'm going to make sure the .cs stays there. If I get rid of that, I could corrupt the project. Visual Studio is really smart about some things and really dumb about others. But I'm going to make sure the .cs stays there and press enter. Now, it pops up and says, if you change this file name, it's not going to match the code in your project. Would you like to fix the code to make it match? We usually want to, so we'll say yes. And we should see then our class name change to match that file name that we just changed. Okay, lots of stuff for you guys to look at, I know. The one thing that they show in the textbook that we haven't done is using the debugger. So we saw that we can click start to run our program, but what if we want to see what each line of code is doing? This program is not super great at showing that, but we can use the debugger, and I want you to get started using it really early, so this is great. I want to use the drop down on the start menu. Where are you, stupid thing? Yeah, they've got things changed. It's being weird. They've changed the interface a little bit. We should be able to just click that drop down and choose debug. And instead, they've got it set up in Visual Studio as a separate option.
I mean, one
do what?
I mean, the one next, not below.
Doesn't matter. Same thing. Either way. That's one of the things about Visual Studio. You have so many different ways of doing things. And as a good developer, one thing for you is to always be watching others. And instead of letting your mind go to that, they're doing it wrong thing, watch and learn and see if there's another way to do things that you weren't aware of. Because sometimes they might actually have a worse way. Sometimes it might be a better way. So if we look at this debug drop down, it gives us some information about how we can debug our program. We can use the debug menu and see some other information about how we want to debug our program. But basically, we can just run our program and start debugging. If you notice, the start debugging icon is exactly the same as the start button. So we've just made it super easy. So how can I make it to where I can look at each line of code? I need to set a breakpoint. So I'm going to set a breakpoint right here where we change the foreground color. And I can set a breakpoint a lot of different ways. I could right-click here and choose breakpoint. Or I could come over here to the far left in this gray area and click so that I have that red circle. That's a breakpoint. Now what a breakpoint is a line of code where Visual Studio is going to stop executing to let you take control, so that you can step through your code and see what's happening line by line. So now that I have this breakpoint set, if I start my program, the debugger should automatically take control and stop for me at that breakpoint. So my console window opens, and then I see my code window again. Looks a little different though. So The line of code that's ready to be executed is highlighted in yellow. It's ready to run it. Got a little red arrow there, but it hasn't run it yet. Now, we don't have any variables or anything in this code, so there's not a lot for us to look at. But down here, Visual Studio and the debugger would show us all our variables if we had any, so we could see what their values were, and we can see what's happening with our program. Now, for this program, since we're just writing some things out to the console, we can just go line by line through our code. If you look at the toolbar, we have some new options because we're in the debugger. We have these options: step into, step over. I want to step into, which I could also use the F11 key for. And that means I want to run this line of code and be ready to run the next line. So now that code is run. If I look at my console, I should see, if I had any text, I would see it be yellow, but I don't have any, so I can't tell anything happened. So I'm going to keep stepping into, finally, I'm to this line of code where it's supposed to write this line out. So I can run it. If I look at my console now, I should see that that first line has been printed out to the screen. That line of code has been executed. If I keep going, I'll see that middle line. And I'll keep going. And I've got that next line. And then finally, we'll change our color back to black. Then we'll do our read key statement to keep our console open. So as we work and start working with variables and things, then this debugger will be a lot more valuable to us as time goes on. But notice how it's just really built into Visual Studio. Super easy to use. We can just set a breakpoint and it'll stop at that line of code and let us see what's going on. So to reset that breakpoint, we can click on that red spot to get rid of it, or we could right click and choose breakpoint again, or a whole bunch of other ways. So try it, see what you think. So at this point, I want to do one last thing before we close our program. Put some comments in. So up here at the top, between our namespace and our hello world, we can put in some comments about our program. Now, different companies are going to require different comments from their developers, and they're going to require different comments for new programs versus changes that you make to an existing program. So you always want to be aware of what the requirements are and make sure that you're following along with the way they want things. So I'm going to say that I'm the developer, and I could put a caveat here from C# Pro 7. That's our textbook. And then I'll put a date. These are my requirements, 1/23/19, because I want to see some comments in your code so that basically it reinforces to me that I'm putting the grade in for the right person. We have a lot of things to look at. Yes, sir? And it'll actually do all sorts of great things for you if you do 3. But I don't want to use those kind of comments yet. But that's true. So we're just going to use 2 for right now, and then we'll look at those others here in a bit. Now our purpose is to say hello. Now we've got those 2 line comments. That was kind of annoying, right? I keep putting those in there and tabbing to the right place and all that. So if I go down to my main here, I can try some different types of comments. I'm going to first open up a line, which I may not need to do, but since you're watching, I want to make sure I do. And let's try the 3 slashes, like he's mentioning. So notice I did a lot more than just open up a line for me for comments. When we use 3 slashes like this, we're actually creating XML comments in our code. So this keyword summary and the end summary tag can be used to save this comment and to generate this comment code for other developers to use and see on down the road. So when we do the 3 slashes, we get a lot more capability than just our 2/ comments. So it adds a lot more than just being better comments. It gives us that XML type code. So notice for this summary, it popped in some other information too. It said this main method uses a parameter that's named args. We won't talk about too much more about that right now other than to point out it did it for you automatically. I'm going to put just a summary comment in here about my main method and say something like, the main method is where the program begins. If I can type today. Perfect. So we have some different types or styles of commenting in C#. As we work through the semester, I'm going to ask different things of you from comments. When you're working on the repls, I don't care if you really put many comments in there at all, because it doesn't have very much help for you when you're typing. So you could get kind of overloaded if you were worried about a lot of comments and not really get your code done. That's not what I want, right? So in repl, you're going to not worry too much about comments. When you turn things into hypergrade, hypergrade's not going to care if you have a comment or not, but I'll be looking at it at that point. So when you turn things into hypergrade, I'd like to see a comment block like this. I don't care if you use 2 slashes or 3. But something with your name and some information. Why? Well, there's a lot of different reasons. These are the kind of comments I was required to use at most of the places where I worked. That's one reason. Secondly, it's really helpful to you to kind of get your thoughts straight. What is this program? What is its purpose? So if you find yourself always typing things like, it has no purpose, you may need to look deeper. You know, it probably does have a purpose. So think about what it's doing. And thirdly, you wouldn't believe how many cheaters it catches. Oh my God. If you were going to steal code from somebody, you would change their name, right? Not if you were a cheater, apparently. So even that little teeny thing catches a lot of people, which is really silly. Because we want them out of here. We don't want them making you guys look bad, right? We want you having a good rep getting out of OTC. We don't want it to be known as a place that a cheater can get to. So yeah, we're all on the lookout because we want out of them. So amazingly enough, people that cheat, that steal your code, often will leave your name in the comments without even changing it to theirs. So that's why I want your name in there. And then I can grade it that way and it'll look good. Now the 3/ comments that comment every component, I'll start being more particular about those at the very end of the semester. So right now, kind of up to you. Now, as a new programmer, are more comments gonna help you or hurt you?
Probably help.
It'll help a lot of people it'll hurt. So that's why it's kind of up to you. Some people do better if they have a comment for every line of code. To other people, that's a huge distraction, and they can't understand why there's so many comments when they just want to focus on the code. So it really is kind of up to you. I'll try to put some in so that we are close to every line of defining what's going on, but you might not like them. You know, you might not like that many comments in your code. That's fine. We can also do comments that are on each line, right? So let's say I could come out here to this line and I could go over and say, here is a comment, and I could put comments on each line of code that way. So many different options. And you as a developer can use these things, you know, to be creative and kind of pick your style. How are you going to do it? Yes, sir?
Is there a way you can put a comment in the middle of a line of code, like in HTML?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope, because it's code. So HTML, being just a markup language that's not compiled, is more flexible about things like that. Right, so we can do that here. All right, repl time. We don't have a lot of minutes, just 10 or 15. So you're welcome to get out of here if you want, but if you want to bring up that repl course and make sure you can get off to a good start, do that. Do let me know. Keep in communication if you're having trouble so that I can help you. This first one, really easy stuff, really easy to get sidetracked and have a small problem delay you for a long time. Don't do that. If you're beating your head against the wall, let me know so we can stop it. We don't want that happening this week. We want that later. Now, one last thing. I shouldn't say that, I know. Your assignment this week is this 2 numbers project. The videos that are out here are pretty much exploring Visual Studio like we did, looking at the folder that is created for your project. So we'll try to look at that next time in class, but you can watch that video. Notice that there's a video here that's the 2 numbers walkthrough. Does that mean that video shows you step by step how to do this program? Yeah. So let's make sure we get that program done and turned in, because this video here should take you step by step through the whole thing. Because this is your second project, it is important that you are really, really super successful with this one and getting off to a good start and seeing how things work. So don't watch the video if you don't need to. If you do it on your own, I'm going to be able to tell, and it's going to be better. But if you need to, watch the video. Thank you. A good annotation. Okay, I'm going to shut up. Short lab time, sorry. Try to do better. Any questions? Got it? Yes?
With the finding your office, is it all right if we just take a trip up there really quick?
We need to do that right now. You are so good. Look at me. I get all involved in our programming and forget. Let's go do that. You guys can leave your stuff here because I'll lock it. So let's go now. All these ones, oh, I always forget about it. I get to programming and I'm like, oh, this is all I want. What did I learn all this stuff? Anybody that knows where it is? Do you have anybody that knows where it is? Come upstairs. You might want to upstairs to the office. Yeah, right.
I've never been to your office.
She's always in the class. Yeah, that's how we are. You know, it's hard to be stuck in our office because there isn't activity for you guys to do some stuff. So when we go up there, we're always looking for fun.
I'm looking for a pen.
Okay.
Oh, you got one? Great, chill, quick.
Silly same names. Gosh, I feel like I got a ton of exercise.
Walking all the way.
I'm gonna
around
take a
the building.
nap. Ugh.
I mean, I think that's going a really long way around the golf.
Well, you got to see a lot. It's a great tour. Now you guys are ready to get out of here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
See you next week, guys. Guess it let everybody join the repl thing.